Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am super excited to be here. And yeah, wow, it has been a long time coming. Really excited to get this going. And let's begin. So, want to learn what the key practice that great authors use? Well, in today's video episode, I am going to be unpacking the art of storytelling. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Escobar. I teach content creators, entrepreneurs, and leaders how to write and self publish their books. So go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment on this live episode of Vida Stories Podcast. And thank you for being here today. If there is something that you would love to see covered in this podcast, please feel free to share about it in the comment section. I would love to have some interaction with you all and hear what is resonating with you, what you took away from it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So, have you ever had a freak accident or a fall happen to you? Now, why am I mentioning that? Well, the thing is that without a doubt, every single one of us has had a moment like that where you have maybe fallen off of a chair, you have tripped on something, or like me this week, almost completely butchered off one of my fingers, just slicing it open. So things happen, right? We all have had some kind of an experience where we fall, right? And then what happens? Eventually that becomes a memory, and this memory then becomes a story that you tell to somebody else. And when you go to retell this story, what happens? All of the flood of emotion comes back to your mind. And even as you're sharing it, you are invoking that emotion again from that very fall, from that very cut, or what have you, right? And so this is what's called the art of storytelling. So, the art of storytelling is an ancient art form that has been utilized by cultures and groups since really the beginning of time. And in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people who continue year after year to purchase the best selling book of all time, I believe that the best storyteller is Jesus. And I think that we can learn three key elements or practices from Jesus's storytelling ability and just really his practice of how he would convey a message as authors. And so I'm an author myself. And as I mentioned earlier, I write, and not only write, but I help others to write and self-publish their own works as well. And as those who are aspiring authors, one of the key things to really hone in on is storytelling. And let's go ahead and unpack that. So the number one thing that Jesus did was that at the core of his communication style was stories. Stories is something that really it was whatever came out of his mouth. It was not divorced or separate from a story. Immediately, whatever message that he was conveying, he was going to say it through a story. And interestingly enough, the apostle Matthew actually is quoted in the Gospels of Matthew saying that Jesus was one to always use stories and in illustrations to communicate to the crowds as well as parables. And so parables were essentially, I mean, they're still used today. Many different cultures use them, leaders or communicators, writers, authors. And realistically, all a parable is simply a story from a particular time frame, from a particular so in the case of Jesus, right, he was talking to a lot of agricultural, like farmers and peasants. And so he utilized a lot of nature, a lot of creation, a lot of maybe like farmer type or things that they would understand because it was happening in their day to day. So it's really it was essential, and it was a source of inspiration in how he crafted his stories. Now, what is the lesson here? Well, the lesson here is that as an author, you need to become a student of the culture that your audience and your readership is immersed in. Are they techie? Are they students? Are they moms? Are they artists? Are they beginning their career? Are they married? Are they in the baby stage of their parenting journey? Are they empty nesters? All of those things matter because you absolutely need to know the core of who you as an author are going to be speaking to, which leads me to my next point. Number two, Jesus absolutely knew his audience. He knew them like the back of his hand. He knew the thoughts, the ins and outs of these fishermen, tax collectors, religious leaders. He understood their day-to-day language and just the formation of their day, how it all went, their interactions with one another, which is why he was able to speak so vividly and also connect in such a way that they were compelled by his story. They were compelled by the message. But it also even went a step further. So the step further is that Jesus would unpack stories that were universal. And in being universal, meaning that he would talk about really the core of humanity. And that was something that I would say was strategic and smart, because here we are 2000 plus years later, still talking about his message every single day, lots and different ways that it has been communicated in many different forms, and it continues to resonate with people, because there is something about being able to tap into pain points, or something about being able to tap into points of joy, into what it is to have the human experience and to speak into that towards an audience. And that doesn't happen until you really, as an author, make it a point to understand and to really capture the reality of your audience, of your reader base. And I mean, I'll go on a little bit of a tangent here and just really emphasize that the reality is the book that you're writing, it's not for you. While you may be writing it, it's not about you really. It's going to be about your audience. It has to capture their attention. It has to speak to where they are in their life, in the time period that they are found in, right? And it even has to speak beyond that. I mean, who hasn't read a book? Who hasn't picked up a message or something from a different time period? I mean, gosh, I was just reading about C.S. Lewis this past week, and just compelled or just inspired by his own journey as an author himself, the many trials, and just even the many life experiences that happened to him that greatly inspired his creativity as an author, and what propelled him into the types of genres that he stepped into. So, going into point number three, Jesus made a practice of doing what's called the go and tell methodology when storytelling with his audience. So, what does that mean? Well, people were compelled enough by his message that they could not keep the message to themselves. Now, this goes back to that analogy of what I began with, right? When you just have that like freak accident, or you have that moment where just something so outrageous maybe happens to you that you have to talk about it. Now, this actually happened to me. Like I mentioned yesterday, I had this really just bizarre freak accident that happened to my hand. I almost like sliced off my finger, and it just continued to be the story that I was telling today to various people that I was just chatting with, whether it was at lunch or texting, or talking to my sister, my husband, whomever. And as I'm retelling this, it's like the whole experience is coming back to me, but I'm also like animating it in a sense, right? And as a good, like, a great practice of an author, you don't have the benefit per se of like the live, like the touchability of a human being. And so what's the next greatest weapon that you have is your words on that page, right? And so your words on that page have to convey the reality, the power of the story that you are conveying and that you are communicating to others, so much to the point that the reader, your author, cannot keep that message to themselves. They absolutely pick up their phone, they pick up and do the text message or send the email or purchase your book and give it to someone else, or continue to be a part of your author journey and continue to want to, like, what's next? When's the next book coming out? When's the next writing that you have available? I need to know more. Like, this is just like, wow, it's impacted me, and that's definitely the type of impact you want to have as an author, is for your reader, for your audience to have um, that walk away feeling, right? You never want your audience, you never want your readership to walk away feeling like, well, what was the point of that? I mean, sure, I read that and okay, that's a nice message or that's a nice thought, but really, so what? Right? And as authors, we do have to ask, it's our job. We have to do that due diligence, really, of really, so what? Like, why is it that I, as a person, before being an author, but I, as a person, feel compelled, or I need to convey this? Like, why do I have this urge to communicate this out? And you should have almost like a call to action for yourself before you are placing a call to action to others. So what is it that in the message that you're communicating, are you rising to the occasion as a person, as the author as well? And in doing that, others are going to be able to respond and match that, right? And so, like I said, Jesus was a master at this. So, point number one, to review, story was at the core, right? So, a great author is gonna utilize story to really hook in the your audience. Number two, you have to know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Who is that person? Who is the person that you're speaking to? Is it a male? Is it a female? Is it children? Is it elderly? All of those things matter. And the reality is, especially for those new authors, you hear a lot of things like, oh, this is for everybody, this message is for everyone. Well, okay, but the most impactful thing that you can do, I think, and there's always going to be that tension, right? Of like, well, you may want this to be for everyone. And while, yes, Jesus utilized global or large themes of humanity, which touch everyone at every point in time, he made sure to still get to the core, the heart, and something that people were able to walk away with. It wasn't so specific that it didn't just stay in that time period. It wasn't just like, oh, this is only for first century, because we are not in the first century anymore. We've moved past that time period, and yet the way that he conveyed his message continued to resonate. And so, I think that that's the ultimate goal as an author, is to know that your work, to know that your message is going to live beyond you, that it's going to be your life's legacy, and that it's going to really take a life form of its own. And then point number three is the go and tell method, that you give a clear call to action to your readers, that they know that they know that they know that they're like, wow, I know how to apply what I just learned. I know how to go and now tell other people what I have just learned, that they, if they are not, that they are inspired enough by your writing, by what you have put pen to paper on, the book that you have crafted, that they cannot help but to tell somebody else. They have to share it with other people. I think we've all experienced going to like a bland restaurant where it's just like, wow, this was just not at all what I expected. Like you're just like done and over with it and you don't want to like experience that again. Even a boring book, gosh, I'm sure every single person can attest to having a moment where that has been the case. And that's forgettable, right? You don't want your book to be a forgettable experience. Like, yeah, they read it, da da da, moving on, moving it along. No, it needs to be something that, yes, creates inspiration, but more importantly, or really something that's going to hit home much longer, is that there is a true life application to all of these things. So there you have it. Those are the 3 points and what I wanted to cover in today's podcast episode of Vida Stories. And just to kind of give a little bit of a reminder, or even my own call to action, if you may, this podcast is going to be all about covering storytelling and the ins and outs of writing and self-publishing nonfiction books, and really to those that feel called, or just there's always been an inclination or a stirring within you that you almost have to do that metaphorical pen to paper, right? You are an entrepreneur, you are a leader, you are someone who is a content creator, you are in that creation mode. And it's just like, well, where is this going to go? Where is it going to live? How can I continue to serve my audience well and to serve others in such a way that they walk away inspired and have those moments of application and life change in their life? And if that's you, I would love to do nothing more than to walk alongside of you and help bring your book to life. So underneath, I will put it in the description, but please feel free to contact me. It is a free call, and we will walk through what it is to journey along together and really put some goals in place so that at this year you are able to have your book not just in your hands, but put it in the hands of those that need that message of inspiration, of hope, and really moving forward so that their life can be changed as well. So I hope to see you next time. Please tune in and make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And I will see you next time on Vida Stories Podcast with Elizabeth Escobar. Thanks so much.